Hey there everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Caitlin, your geeky girlfriend, and we're going to review book number 22 in today's video. But before we get there, thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed lately. I'm only one subscriber away from that big 100, which is a big milestone for me, honestly. I know it's not that much to other people, but we've come a long way this year on this channel, so thank you all so much, and there might be something special coming for 100 subscribers, so if you like this video, share it, and go follow me on Instagram as well. I'm always looking to build my community over there too, but that's just my little shout out to those of you who are new here. I'm Caitlin, and welcome to my channel. If this is the first video that you're seeing, then I highly encourage you to scroll down, check out some of my other book reviews. I have movie reviews on this channel. We've got mystery unboxings. We've got Disney stuff. We've got theme park stuff. We've got just a little bit of everything. We have travel stuff on here. This is just like any possible thing that I can think of to vlog is here on this channel. So thank you all so much for being here. Let me know in the comments of any of those videos what you like, what you want to see more of, and give me a thumbs up if you like this one. This is book number 22. Today's review is another library book, so shout out to the local libraries. It is a great way to read and check out resources for free. So we are in the Columbus Metropolitan Library District, and there are tons of libraries all over the city, but it's free to get a library card, it's free to visit, and they have computers and printers and all things that you can go and check out for free and use for free. So highly recommend utilizing your public libraries. And today's book was a library book. I rented it for free. Just take it back. No obligation. So great. I get library books when I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, or I know for sure that I never read a book more than once. That's just how I am. But especially if I'm like not 100% convinced that I'm gonna love it, then I just get it from the library, because then I don't feel as bad because I didn't spend my own money on it, right? So, and today's book is unfortunately one of those. So today's book, book number 22, was Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. And I do actually have the book that I could have showed you guys. One second. So it looks like this. And it does come up on Goodreads. However, like when I was on the library's website, this same cover came up by a different author. So I'm really not sure what's going on there. But it did win the Edgar Award for Best Novel. And this was actually a book club book. So I'm in two book clubs. One is with a group of colleagues that I used to work with, and the other is with my judging community ladies. And this one was one in the judging community book club. It was described to us as like a kind of mystery, true crime sort of feel. It is a fiction novel, and it's set in Minnesota in the 1960s, which ironically, as you may know, I just got back from Minnesota a couple weeks ago, and we in the judging community had a really big conference that was held in Minnesota. So it kind of like hit close to home for that reason. And William Kent Krueger is a pretty popular author. He also wrote This Tender Land. And what I'm getting from the little bit that I know about him is that several of his books revolve around themes and characters that are Native American in descent. And this book is no exception. So this book does include one character of Native American heritage, Warren Redstone, but he by no means is the main character. So like I said, this book is set in the 60s in Minnesota, and it definitely has that small town feel. It was very easy to visualize kind of where the boys grew up and the kinds of things that they would be doing, like shooting off fireworks, riding their bike, etc., etc. This is obviously a time before the internet, so there was one part where they were talking about reading comic books and building model airplanes and things like that, that kids today just do not do enough of. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But after reading the book, I would describe this book as a Christian fiction novel, which is a newer genre, I believe, and it's a genre that is kind of becoming more apparent to me, I would guess. I did just go to the Columbus Book Festival over the weekend, and there were several booths and like advertising Christian fiction. But that was not the part that like turned me off from this book. I had heard good things about this author. This author receives pretty good reviews on Goodreads, but I was extremely bored reading this book. And you can find more details in my Goodreads review at Caitlin M, your geeky girlfriend, over there on Goodreads. But I was just extremely, extremely bored. The meat of the novel and like the big thing, so it's described as like this book in which multiple murders people are killed. Like there are multiple deaths. And it's, accident, nature, suicide, murder. And like all of those things do happen, but the biggest one is like the murder. And, it's supposed to be the most dramatic death of them all. And it does not even take place until 2/3 into the book. So you're just spending the whole time like wondering, okay, when are we going to get to the meat and potatoes of this whole thing? When are we going to get to the big moment? And it literally took 2/3 of the way to get there. I contemplated putting this book down and walking away from it 3 different times. This was the closest I have ever come to DNFing a book, do not finish, because I could not, I was reading 6 or 7 pages at a time, and reading the same page over and over again. I had such a hard time getting into it. Now, I will say the writing style made it easy to visualize, but there was a lot of descriptive writing, talking about the river and the train tracks. And, I get that all of that is the setting is very important to a story. And I would say, out of all the elements of this book, the setting was probably the one thing that was done well. He did a good job describing the setting and transporting us to this little town in Minnesota in 1960 whatever, 62, 64. It's a few years. There was weak character development, I felt. There were a lot of different characters, and I did post a review on Storygraphs in which I did say that the cast of characters was diverse. This book, like I said, Warren Redstone is a character of Native American descent, and then his family, his relatives, also are in the story, and they are also of Native American heritage. But again, they're such side characters that's a theme that's not really discussed other than in passing. At one point Warren is talking to the main character Frank, and he's explaining why he was in jail, and themes of racism were described, but racism was not the underlying theme in the book. So it was just random spurts of these things were thrown out. Similarly, several of the characters in the book have some sort of disability or deformity, which, someone like me, okay, I like that. And that was not advertised. So it was kind of just discovered through reading. There was a character who was deaf. There was a character who was blind. There was a character with a physical facial deformity. There was a character with a cleft lip. So just lots of different physical deformities and abnormalities were discussed. One of the characters is suspected to have autism. One of the characters is suspected to have just a developmental delay. And because the book is set in the 60s, language was used to describe these characters that is now no longer the language used. So that was challenging to read, but I had to remember the time period at which the book was set. However, I don't feel like any one character got justice in this book. I felt like they were all just on this whirlwind experience, and there wasn't a happy ending for anybody. Nobody really got what they deserved in the end, And it just, like, I felt like nobody, good or bad, received justice. And so I just, like, read this whole book, and I suffered through it, for lack of a better word, and I gave it a 1 star on Goodreads because it was so, like, the whole first 200 pages were just that, a struggle. Like, I found myself skipping whole sections of print to try and get to the dialogue. And it's not that the dialogue was bad, it just kind of fell flat for me. I was expecting, I don't know, when I heard that this was a mystery sort of crime novel, this was not what I was expecting, and that's why I would describe this as a Christian fiction novel, because I would say the majority of the themes revolve around God's grace, God's mercy, and kind of the religious struggle that people, especially in this time period and even today, go through. Something bad happens, you get angry at God about it, something else happens, and you feel God's grace, and then you repent and forgive God. That's the story of this. Like, that is what the meat and potatoes of this novel is, and it took us forever to get there. So I had a really hard time finding even anything that I even liked about the book. It just, to me, was really, really boring. I've heard that This Tender Land is really good, and I did read the first chapter of it because it was included in the back of this one, and I do feel like maybe that one would be a little bit more enticing. So, like, it's kind of on the back burner for me that maybe sometime in my life I will try and read This Tender Land. But yeah, for me, this one did not cut it. Now, I will say, as a genre, Christian fiction might be something that is on my radar. Like, I actually picked up a Christian fiction blind date with a book at the book festival. But yeah, I don't know, like, and how it got its title is just, like, how it got its title is one of the nicer parts of the story. But again, it all happens in that last third of the book. So, like, the last 100 pages, and the whole preceding 200 is just, like, and I think the reason for those first 200 is to kind of lead your mind down the rabbit holes of, like, oh, who could it be? Oh, he's a bad guy, so he probably did it. And it's just to, like, raise suspicion. But yeah, I don't know if I really appreciated this book for what it is. And I feel bad about giving this book such a low score, but it by far, like, it is the lowest rated book that I've read this year. I think it just was not what I was expecting. Like, I was expecting a really suspenseful read, and I was like, oh, it just has a slow start. It's just slow to burn. No, it really, truly never got that suspenseful. And the climactic end I actually did predict, and so, which I was, I felt proud about that I predicted that, but I was kind of angry about the ending also. I was like, really? Really? So, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I have to say about this book. It was not my favorite, but I did finish it, so I can keep to my, like, completist personality and trait of, like, finishing everything that sits in front of me, because I have in a very long time. Now, I'm not saying that I've never not finished a book. There have been 2 books in my entire life that I have put down and never finished. Like, I just put them down and was like, okay, no. But I did go back years later and finish them. I literally told my husband 3 different times, I'm like, I'm just going to skip to the end and, like, read the last page. And this was another one that at the end of the story, there is an epilogue, and the very last few pages is an epilogue, but I felt like before the epilogue, the story really had not come to an end. And that's what I mean, like, I don't feel like any of the characters really received their due justice, because if you need an epilogue, the story was not finished. So I was a little bit bitter about that too. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Based on this book alone, I would not recommend this author unless you really like descriptive settings, if you really like small town books, which I also do not. Like, I relate to the small town. I grew up in a very small town. My husband is from a pretty small town. So, like, I relate to the small town narrative, but I like to read about people living in big cities, because that's the type of life that I, like, love. Like, I love the stories where they take place in New York City and they're just on the subway and all those things. Like, I love that whole thing. So, the small town trope for me doesn't always get me there, so to speak, in terms of like, oh my gosh, I really like this book. This, like I said, is the lowest rated book of the year, unfortunately, but the year is still young. We are only in July, and this was book number 22, so I've almost met my reading goal of 24 books for 2024. The next book that I'm reading is a nonfiction book because I've only read 2 so far, and my goal was to do 6, so we're going to read a couple of like nonfiction books here over the next, no, I've read 3 nonfiction books because I did Letters to a Young Gymnast, I'm Glad My Mom Died, and the Everything I Learned About My Life I Learned from a John Hughes Movie. Those were the 3 nonfiction books that I've read this year, so I'm halfway through that. The next one will be book number 4 out of 6 for nonfiction. And I have a couple in my Amazon cart for Prime Day, but I also have a bunch on my shelf. And I know around September 11th, I have already some picked out that are nonfiction. So anyway, I digress. But the year is still young. We still have lots more books to be read. And so this might not be the only one that received a low rating, but I think this is the lowest. This is the only one that I've given a 1-star rating this year. Everything else has been like a 2-star because of the ending or because, you know, oh, it really redeemed itself at the end. No, I can't even say that about this one. So I apologize for this kind of sour review. That's an honest review. I like to keep it honest because everybody has their own opinion, and I am really curious to go to the book club meeting and hear what other people had to say about this. Like, I'm really curious to hear if other people enjoyed this or if everybody kind of felt the same way. So I'll be interested to see. And I'm not going to be shy about saying, yeah, this one was not for me, because not every book is for you. But that's my review of Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger. I'm going to head back to the library and take that back. And let me know in the comments if you've read this. If you've read any of William Kent Krueger's other stuff, let me know your thoughts about that, because, like I said, right now he's kind of I don't know if I would read that. I don't know if I would read him again, knowing my experience with this one, because that's the same thing with Holly Jackson. Like, I read the Good Girl Gone Bad or whatever, and I was like, I need a break from her, because it just totally, like, turned me off. I'm running out of storage, and I'm running out of time, so that's it for this video. Like and subscribe for more. See you guys next time.